30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Now.
Good evening. I want to call this meeting of the Durham City Council to order at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 19th. And I certainly want to welcome everyone here today, my colleagues, our wonderful city staff, and everyone who is here with us in the meeting or also watching or streaming it. And we are so glad to have you with us. Tomorrow, as everyone knows, is Inauguration Day, and I'm very excited about that. And it'll be a very special day for our country. Please join me now in a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilmember Reese, would you please lead us in the pledge to the flag?
I will, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, colleagues, city staff, and all the folks watching at home, I'll now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Schul.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freelon.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Middleton.
I am here.
Councilmember Reese.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're now going to move to a very special item. Secretary Cohen, we are so glad to have you with us. We have many proclamations and resolutions and presentations at the Durham City Council. I'm very proud that we recognize people in lots of different ways, but only very rarely do we present the key to the city. And I am thrilled to be able to do that tonight, to present you the key to the city of Durham. We present the key to those people who have represented Durham in some exceptional way on the national or world stage, or to those people from outside our city who have rendered exceptional service to our city and its people. And you are one of those people. Dr. Cohen, you have been such a remarkable champion of public health. You have kept us safe. You have followed the science and explained the science so articulately to all of us. You have been a calm voice in the storm, a voice of reason and good sense. You have warned us, sometimes scolded us and pushed us, informed us, educated us, led us, and all in the service of keeping our state safe from the ravages of COVID-19. I can't tell you how many times I've heard these words from our Durham residents. Thank God for Mandy Cohen. I feel like we all need to be wearing rubber bracelets around saying, what would Mandy do? I am so glad to be able to make this presentation to you tonight. Unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, we are only able to present the key to you virtually tonight. We do have a real key to give you, but we are following your COVID-safe instructions. That key is at City Hall, and our staff only goes to City Hall for critically important needs. But I promise you that after we are back at City Hall, you will receive the key and the proclamation in beautiful physical form, and I look forward to that. Tonight, we are welcoming another special guest to our City Council meeting, Governor Roy Cooper. We have all observed the superb partnership that you two have, working to keep North Carolina safe, and we are so grateful, Governor, that you were with us. You have been a terrific governor. You are a terrific governor, and how fortunate we are that you were reelected to this post in November. Secretary Cohen, I'm now going to read the proclamation, and then I'll ask Governor Cooper for his message, and then we'd like you, turn the floor over to you for a few words as well. So I'll first read the proclamation. Whereas Dr. Mandy Cohen was appointed to the role of Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services in January 2017 by Governor Roy Cooper, excuse me, and whereas since the sudden and virulent onset of COVID-19, Secretary Cohen has brilliantly led the response to the virus for the state of North Carolina, overseeing operations including hospital surge capacity, testing capacity, tracing capacity, PPE availability, in addition to constructing the advanced data infrastructure necessary to drive decision-making, as well as developing the policy guidance to inform state and local actions needed to slow the spread of the virus. And whereas throughout the pandemic, in the absence of strong, unified national leadership, North Carolina and the city of Durham have had to chart our own course to keep our residents safe. And whereas the daunting task of leading this pandemic response in North Carolina has fallen on the shoulders of Secretary Cohen, who has taken up this challenge with wisdom, courage, patience, and perseverance. And whereas Secretary Cohen has made her decisions without regard to politics, but rather based on science and the dictates of her own conscience. And whereas Secretary Cohen has communicated these decisions and all public health guidance to the public with admirable clarity and calm that has educated our people and kept them safe. And whereas the actions of Secretary Cohen have saved the lives of thousands and thousands of North Carolinians, including many people in our beloved city of Durham. And whereas, on rare occasions, it happily falls to the mayor of the city of Durham to recognize someone who is a true friend of Durham, but who lives beyond our borders, someone who has rendered the most exceptional service to our city and its people with the presentation of a key to our city. Now, therefore, I, Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor of the city of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2021 as Secretary Mandy Cohen Day in Durham, and do hereby present the key to the city of Durham to Secretary Cohen in honor of her extraordinary service to our community. Witness my hand this, the 19th day of January, 2021. So Secretary Cohen, this is the way we clap now. We are so proud to be able to do this. And now, before turning the floor over to you, I'm going to ask Governor Cooper if he would say a few words. Governor, we're so glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Schewel and members of the Durham City Council. You also deserve credit for your strong local leadership during this COVID pandemic, and we have enjoyed having the strong working relationship that we have with you. I've said many times that we have by far the most diverse cabinet in the history of North Carolina. But what it isn't said a lot, which I believe from the bottom of my heart, we have the most qualified and competent cabinet as a whole in the history of our state. And one of the reasons for that is Dr. Mandy Cohen. Not many good things happened in November of 2016. But one of those things, good things, was that I got elected as governor with help from good people in DeBull City. And because of a president we've had to endure, there were a lot of amazingly qualified and talented people who were ready to leave Washington and to find something else to do in public service. And we got the good fortune of having Dr. Mandy Cohen with her wonderful husband and her two brilliant daughters to come to North Carolina. They are in public school now and dealing with remote learning. What a wonderful family they are. But they have come to North Carolina, and you have seen firsthand the amazing leadership that Mandy has shown. You see it on display every time she steps in front of the mic, but what you don't see are the 12 and 13-hour work days, the amazing capacity for hard work that she has and having hard conversations. It's been a privilege to work with her on a daily basis during this COVID crisis, but it kind of overshadows incredible work that she has been doing in substance use disorder arena, mental health, making sure that we are paying attention to social determinants of health, and making sure that we are covering as many people in North Carolina as we can with health insurance. She's leading probably the most difficult, complex departments that we have in state government. And I'm grateful for her every day. And this is a wonderful gesture for you to make, Mayor Schul. And I'm sure that Mandy will be able to use this key. Maybe you need a combination lock during COVID, I'm not sure. But in any event, I just wanted to come on tonight to congratulate Dr. Cohen on this well-deserved honor, to thank you, Mayor, and the Durham City Council, and realize that at the North Carolina State Capitol, every day is Secretary Mandy Cohen Day. Thanks very much for letting me join you tonight.
Thank you so much, Governor. We're so glad that you came. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. We really appreciate your being here. Dr. Cohen, we'd love for you to give us whatever message you would like.
Well, good evening, everyone. First, thank you, Mayor Schul. What an honor this is. And you reading the proclamation, I immediately need to thank the governor, though, for those kind words, and also being the kind of leader that that is just so incredible to work for every day, who is just so consistent in his desire to follow the science and the data, and to protect the health and well-being of North Carolinians at every turn. This has been a tough year, piled on multiple hurricanes, and so we couldn't have asked for a better leader than Governor Cooper, and I am so grateful to be able to be on his team and work for him during this time for the people of North Carolina. So thank you, Governor, and it's very kind of you to share, I know, what isn't a lot of time in the evening for this, so I'm very grateful. And then to the rest of the Durham City Council, thank you so much for this kind honor. I have to share it with my team. You get to see me on TV, but it is a huge team effort at the Department of Health and Human Services, Emergency Management, the governor and his whole team that is working constantly and have been for a year now trying to keep North Carolina safe. And so I accept the key to the city on behalf of that whole team. You know, our family has a very special connection to Durham. Yes, we reside in Raleigh, but we often are playing in Durham. Oh, and here's my youngest daughter, Evelyn, to tell you about that. One of the first places we went as a family was the Durham Museum of Life and Science, and it's a place we go often, not as much during COVID, obviously, but it was a wonderful place. And I want to introduce my husband, Sam, who's sitting here with me, because I couldn't have done any of this without his incredible love and support. This has been a hard year for every family across North Carolina, and our family is no different. As the governor mentioned, both of my girls are in public school, and you know, you see me at the Emergency Operations Center, which means I'm not at home, and means my husband is, and I'm so grateful for his love and support, but also just the thought partner that he is, and incredibly brilliant in his own right on these areas. So I'm so lucky. So besides the Durham Museum of Life and Science, I did have to mention that we love the Durham Bulls and have been to multiple games there, but also DPAC holds a place in our heart because my daughter, who is about to turn 9, is when she saw Hamilton there, and it has changed her life, as many people's lives, to see Hamilton there, but bringing the arts and music and culture and science and sports and a great deal of fun to our family. So thank you to the city of Durham. You know, I've been impressed with the work that the team has done in response to COVID, and Mayor Schul, particularly want to thank you for the Back on the Bull campaign. You were very much leading the way in how do we partner with the business community to make sure that we are not spreading COVID in our communities. I thought that was incredible leadership and incredibly insightful on how to build those partnerships to protect us all. So that work, the testing work, the contact tracing, and now into vaccine. So we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We know it's going to take us a number of months to get there because there's just not enough vaccine for everyone. But I'm already proud of nearly 500,000 vaccines in arms here in North Carolina. We're going to keep trucking forward as fast as we can. So thank you again for this wonderful honor. I share it with a fantastic team that is both at the state, but is also right in Durham itself. So thank you so much for this honor. And I look forward to using that key, I think, to unlock a few good parking spots at the Durham Bulls game. That's what I heard is part of it. So I'm pretty excited about it. So thank you for that, and have a lovely, lovely evening. And thank you for all of your support.
Thank you, Secretary Cohen. We are so glad you are with us. We appreciate you being here tonight. We're so glad to be able to honor you. Governor, thank you for being here. Sam and family, thank you all for being with us. And we'll let you go and enjoy your families. And I see the governor's got his mask on, so he's setting a good example for all of us. Take care. All right, colleagues, that was fun. That's something you don't get to do a lot. I'm not sure the last time a governor was at the Durham City Council, but it doesn't happen often, and it was great to see him. All right, we have some other great ceremonial items, and a couple of my colleagues are going to help me with those items. And the first one is celebrating and honoring the life and service of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. proclamation. And Councilmember Caballero is going to do the honors. And we're joined today by DeWarren Langley, and I see DeWarren is with us. Great. All right, Councilmember Caballero.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Whereas a champion of nonviolence and justice, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to strengthening the content of American character, fought unrelentingly for the civil rights of all Americans, and taught us that courage displaces fear, love transforms hate, acceptance dissipates prejudice, and mutual regard cancels enmity. And whereas in the face of hatred and violence, Dr. King preached a doctrine of nonviolence and civil disobedience to combat segregation, discrimination, and racial injustice, and believed people have the moral capacity to care for other people. And whereas Dr. King was one of the leaders of the successful 381-day Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 to protest the arrest of Rosa Parks and the segregation of the bus system, and whereas Dr. King helped found and served as the first president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957 to coordinate and support nonviolent direct action as a method of desegregating bus systems across the South. And whereas between 1960 to 1964, Dr. King made addresses in Durham at White Rock Baptist Church, the Durham Business and Professional Chain, Hillside High School, the Southern Political Science Association at the Jack Tar Hotel, North Carolina College, now North Carolina Central University, and Duke University, urging civil disobedience and nonviolent protests to end racial segregation and discrimination. And whereas on August 28, 1963, Dr. King led the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, the largest rally of the civil rights movement, during which from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and before a crowd of more than 200,000 people, he delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech, in which he called for an end to racism and advocated for the civil and economic rights of African Americans. And whereas the March on Washington was instrumental in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religious, sex, or national origin, and prohibited unequal application of voter registration requirements and racial segregation in schools, employment, and public accommodations. And whereas Dr. King helped to organize the monumentally inspiring Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965 to advocate for the passage of Voting Rights Act of 1965 to guarantee African American citizens the right to vote. And whereas Dr. King was supporting the garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee, and planning the Poor People's Campaign to promote economic justice when he was assassinated in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. Now, therefore, I, Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby honor the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his commitment to improve the human condition of all people through access to quality education, affordable housing, equal opportunity, shared prosperity, quality healthcare, living wage employment, and safe labor conditions for all employees. I hereby urge all residents to join in reflecting on Dr. King's life and fulfilling his dream. Witness my hand. This day, the 19th day of January 2021, Stephen M. Schewel. And And I think that Mr. Langley maybe wanted to say some words. I don't know if we were doing that this evening. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, good evening, members of the City Council. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Durham Community Martin Luther King Jr. Steering Committee and our Chair, Dorothy Fillmore. We had our virtual annual religious service thanks to the Virtual Justice Project at North Carolina Central University School of Law, where we celebrated and honored the life and service of Dr. Martin Luther King. We also awarded our Keeper of the Dream Award, which is a recognition that we give each year to one individual and one organization. This year, those recipients were Marcella Thompson of the Mustard Seed Project out of East Durham and the Durham Proud program. Dr. King's last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Community of Chaos, analyzed the state of American race relations and the movement after a decade of U.S. civil rights struggles. With the Selma and the Voting Rights Act, one phase of the development and the civil rights revolution came to an end, King believed the next phase in that movement would be bringing about better jobs, higher wages, decent housing, and education equality for African Americans. We continue those fights now, and as a community, and as we continue to grapple with COVID and other racial and oppressive systems, we must be mindful of the work that we all must do and ensure that our efforts are measured by tangible outcomes to bring about the results that Dr. King so urgently preached about, lived, and did in his living. So thank you all so very much for this resolution honoring the life and service of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langley. We appreciate you bringing us the resolution each year. We appreciate you being here today. And thank you very much, Councilmember Caballero, for sharing the resolution with us, the proclamation with us. All right, thank you so much. And now we'll move to our next ceremonial item. This is the National Day of Racial Healing Proclamation. This is part of a national movement. And Councilmember Reese is going to do the honors. And Deborah Giles, Ms. Giles, I know is with us, will be receiving the proclamation. Let's see if we can get Ms. Giles. Oh yeah, there she is. Okay, great. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the proclamation and then we'll hear a few words from Ms. Giles, the Director of the City of Durham's Own Equity and Inclusion Department. Whereas we have all witnessed racial divisiveness rising in America's urban, rural, suburban, and tribal communities today that threatens the very core of this great country's united front. And whereas, just like those who came before us, it is our duty to protect the children of this country and maintain communities in which they may all be given the opportunity to succeed. And whereas we understand and recognize that there is a racial divide in our country, and we must all work earnestly to heal the wounds created by racial, ethnic, and religious bias and build an equitable and just society so that all children can thrive. And whereas children have the right to be provided every opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive in nurturing environments that don't violate their safety, dignity, and humanity. And whereas every single person has the capability to make a simple change within themselves that can have a profound effect on an entire society. And whereas if we all dedicate ourselves to the principles of truth, racial healing, and transformation, we can all bring about the necessary changes in thinking and behavior that will propel this great country forward as a unified force where racial biases will become a thing of the past. And whereas racial healing is a vital and crucial commitment to the education, social, mental, and overall well-being of all of our children. Now, therefore, I, Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2021 as National Day of Racial Healing in Durham, and do hereby urge all residents to promote racial healing and transformation in the ways that are best suited to them individually as a means to working together to ensure the best quality of life for every child. Witness my hand the 19th day of January, 2021.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Ms. Giles, we would love to hear a few words from you.
So thank you so much to the mayor and the members of City Council and all who might be present on this meeting. The Equity and Inclusion Department is very pleased to accept this proclamation, which is the first of Durham's observation of a National Day of Racial Healing. These commemorations have been going on a long time and were started in 2017 by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to facilitate bringing people together to find ways in which to make this a more equitable world. It's also significant that the celebration is always held on the day after the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day. I just attended a conversation being conducted by the Neighborhood Improvement Services Community Engagement Team. And I can assure you there were about 50 people on that call, and the conversation was difficult. But the beauty was that it was a very diverse group who were willing to keep pressing forward to share what is going on in the city of Durham and how they would like to see things changed. So that for that we can be uplifted. I was also reminded that the goal of healing is not just to cover up and paper over the issues of trauma created by racism in a community and present things as normal. It is a time to acknowledge that the problem continues to have a painful existence, but with wisdom, understanding, desire, and courage, there can be change. And so my closing, I want to thank the members of this city council for having the courage to raise and elevate racial equity as a priority in the city of Durham. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Giles, for those very eloquent words. And thank you, Councilmember Reese. And Ms. Giles, thank you for the work of your department every day. We know that a lot of the work that we need to do is headquartered right there, and we're very, very grateful for you.
We thank you.
All right, colleagues, we had some great ceremonial items tonight. And now we're going to move on to our announcements by members of the council. And are there announcements by council members? Councilmember Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening again, colleagues. It's great to be with you again for another one of our Monday night meetings. Virtual still because of the coronavirus. And that's really what my first announcement is about. I wanted to make sure that folks are aware that the Durham County Department of Public Health began vaccinations for both groups 1 and 2 at Southern High School today here in Durham. Group 1, of course, is healthcare workers and residents and staff at long-term care facilities. Group 2 is anyone 65 years of age and older. And so the vaccinations at Southern High are by appointment only. So you have to call ahead to make an appointment. You can't just show up. And the number you want to call is 919-560-4357. That's 919-560-4357. As the health department has told us, call volume has been extraordinarily high since they opened up this line last week. You may get a busy signal, you may get an error message. Please keep trying. It's really important that as many people get vaccinated as quickly as possible. That's why they opened up the vaccination site down at Southern High School. There may be some other large sites like that opening up in the weeks ahead, but it's really important that as many people who can get vaccinated do that. And so call that number, 919-560-4357, make an appointment to get vaccinated if you're in those two groups. That's my first announcement, Mr. Mayor. My second announcement, Mr. Mayor, is that later tonight, we're going to be having a good conversation about the Violence Interrupter program and the extent to which the city is going to make a financial decision, a commitment to that county program. I just want to say how glad I am that I don't think there's any disagreement on this council about whether or not we should support it, just to the extent which we do. And I just wanted to take a moment now, because I don't think the conversation it'll mostly focus on money and priorities, to just say that when I think of this program, I think a lot about that quote from Fred Rogers, who talked about when he was a boy, he would and saw scary things. His mother would tell him, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And I think, to me, that's what the Violence Interrupter program does. It increases the number of helpers that are in parts of our city that desperately need them. And so I'm looking forward to supporting that, looking forward to a good conversation that we're going to have about that as a council. And lastly, Mr. Mayor, under the assumption that no one polls item number 5, and Madam Clerk, before I go any further, has anyone said from the public indicated they were going to poll item number 5 on our agenda tonight?
Not to my knowledge, Council Member.
Great. Well, I think since it's on the consent agenda, this is my first, last, and only time to just say a word or two about the new revised non-discrimination ordinance that we'll be passing tonight. Mr. Mayor, I know you and I, and Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem, then Councilmember Johnson, were members of the Durham City Council in March of 2016 when the previous governor of North Carolina signed House Bill 2. 2 weeks later, we passed in our next work session a resolution condemning the passage of House Bill 2 and asking the General Assembly to repeal it as quickly as possible. They didn't do that. They passed a successor law, House Bill 142, that maintained the prohibition against local governments from expanding our ordinances that prevent discrimination in employment and public accommodations. And at that time, the City Council reaffirmed its support for protecting and advancing the constitutional rights and equitable treatment of all of its residents, and its opposition to discrimination in employment and public accommodations. Tonight, Mr. Mayor, we take the step that was prohibited under law until just last month. We will be expanding North Durham's non-discrimination ordinance, and it will prohibit discrimination in ways that we were forbidden to before, and that's really exciting. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to our staff, Senior Assistant City Attorney.
For the first time, regardless of one's religious affiliation or non-religious affiliation, whether you're observing of any particular faith tradition, it's so critically important for us sometimes to pause as a nation and to telegraph to people that they matter and that they're not just kind of living aimlessly, not on anybody's radar. And this evening, the incoming president and vice president stood, probably if America had a national parade ground, that's it. The National Mall is our national parade ground, right in the heart of all of that symbol of power, that cold granite in those buildings. They lit lights right in the heart of our democracy, almost to say that those who may never have the opportunity to occupy those seats of power or have offices in those buildings, you matter. This is why all of this stuff is a symbol. Each one of those lights represents why we're here, why we do what we do. So tonight, I just want to just register my solidarity, alas, finally, with folk that have suffered so much during this pandemic, and just rejoice that our nation so graphically and so powerfully just paused to say that you matter and we see you, and that we may be different races and love differently and have different amounts of money, but we're all the same. We're all on the same page, and we all are part of the national heartbeat, and that's what I felt tonight. We are on the eve of an incredible day tomorrow, and I just want to say, as a resident, as a citizen of the country, tomorrow, for the first time, the Marine Band will strike up Ruffles and Flourishes, and then they will play Hail Columbia. And for the first time in America's history, they will be playing Hail Columbia, and it won't be for a white male. And I just want to just trumpet how incredibly proud and how incredibly moved I am by that. Not anesthetized, because I know we still have a lot of work to do, but I just want to hold space for so many Black women, our daughters, our sisters, who have so much of our power and so much of our progress have been built on their sacrifice and on their brilliance and struggle. I would not be here tonight. I mean, I had a wonderful father and mother, but my mother I would not be here tonight were it not for that Black woman advocating for me. So tomorrow, I just want to just shout out for what's going to happen tomorrow to graduates of historically Black colleges and universities who are just beside ourselves tonight. Members of Divine Nine organizations. We honored one tonight, and Dr. King, and to Kamala Harris's sorority sisters and all around the country. To the Black marching bands that will be in the streets tomorrow, high stepping, escorting her to the White House. For so many folk that have had their faces pressed against the window for so long, wondering if we belong. We will definitively say tomorrow and before tomorrow that you do belong, but we know that there's work to be done. So I just want to just hold that space tonight and just share how filled I am tonight on so many fronts. And then to be able to cast a vote for this non-discrimination ordinance on this night of all nights before what happens tomorrow, to say unequivocally and without ambiguity that in this city, it truly is a city for all people. I could not be more honored for history and circumstance to converge at this moment, to be in this position, to be able to cast a vote for this ordinance tonight. I also want to say that we owe it to all of the groups, that have been historically marginalized, that are rejoicing at this ordinance. And I think Councilor Reese spoke eloquently to this to our last meeting. This can't be an ordinance without teeth. We've got to be prepared to enforce, and we've got to be prepared to do the work when folk feel that they've been aggrieved in the light of this ordinance. So I want to just rejoice and just celebrate tonight. And I look forward to casting the vote on that ordinance. And finally, I do also want to say, Mr. Mayor and Pierce will co-sign on this. We've been having meetings about our guaranteed income initiative, having some wonderful meetings. I want to shout out my brother, Pierce, who's just been doing a great job and corralling disparate folk and voices in our community and bringing them to the table and getting this work done. And I guess a week or so, maybe a couple of weeks, we're going to be bringing forth a resolution in support of the Guaranteed Income Initiative here in Durham, which is one of the check marks that we need to do in order to get that money and put somebody else's money where our mouths are here in Durham. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you for just being who you are and for allowing me to be on this journey. It gets bumpy sometimes, but we're all in the same bus, on the same boat, same ship, whatever you want to call it. And I look forward to sunrise tomorrow and for all the days that come after sunrise tomorrow. So God bless our country. God bless Durham. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank and associate my colleagues for all of their amazing words this evening. It has been a lovely evening so far. And, tonight our meeting is sandwiched between the holiday honoring and celebrating Dr. King and tomorrow's historic presidential inauguration. And as a nation, we're still working on, and often seems moving backwards, on our quest for justice and equality, something we all know Dr. King and so many others fought and yearned for. And we will continue that work because although we're battling the twin tragedies of COVID that's taken 400,000 lives in this country, and the refusal of many, including our sitting president, to fully commit to the peaceful transfer of power, we are making history in the Bull City this evening when we pass a revised non-discrimination ordinance. And I want to thank our staff, especially our City Attorney's Office, Equality NC, the Metro Mayor's Coalition, for all their work to get us to this point. I also want to acknowledge the towns of Carrboro, Hillsborough, and Chapel Hill for all passing their revised non-discrimination ordinances last week. And while this ordinance ensures protection from discrimination for many groups, I want to lift up our LGBTQ community because this is a day many folks were hoping and working towards. And we have a long way to go to really honor and respect everyone's full humanity, but this non-discrimination ordinance is one really small, important step. And I know I dream of a different future, and I know my kids definitely believe in and want a world that accepts and cherishes everyone, regardless of who they love or their gender identity. And I also just want to finally tell all the queer kids out there that I hope you know that we love you and we are fighting for you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Councilmember Freelon.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I've been so moved by everything that everyone's been saying. And when Brother Middleton, when you were speaking, it made me think about the King quote about bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice, and all the things you mentioned, from the everyone, mentioned the non-discrimination ordinance, mayors for guaranteed income, what we're walking into tomorrow with the inauguration with Vice President Harris. We're bending it, y'all. We're bending, we're participating in Durham and as a country in the bending of the moral arc of the universe towards justice. And, particularly I want to say about the guaranteed income, King was talking about that in the 60s. So, so close to his birthday, to be working on this with Councilmember Middleton, to be working with community on this, and then today to hear what everyone has been saying about the ordinances, and it's just really making me feel like King's spirit is with us here today, this evening, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you, colleagues, for speaking so passionately and from the heart. It's just, it has been a wonderful meeting. I agree, Councilmember Caballero. And so thanks, that's all. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Freeman, I know you have a few words because you need to have a few words tonight.
I so appreciate my colleagues, and it is always in these moments, there's just so much that wells up, and I want to be as brief as possible in noting that I think that everyone hit all the major notes that I would have hit, and acknowledging just how important this night is and just what we face in moving forward tomorrow. I just want to add a few things, and just noting that when we celebrate Dr. King, often we don't mention those unsaid names of women who supported him through that movement. And I just want to make sure that I hold space for those women. And then I also want to just note that it's important that in this night where we're honoring our Dr. Mandy Cohen and our Governor Roy Cooper is visiting with us, that we acknowledge that our general legislator has taken a stance of they're not going to respond to our anti-discrimination ordinance. An acknowledgement that and I want to make sure that I read it correctly because it was a quote from the general legislative leadership stating that above all, we are committed to a system of government that represents justice for all North Carolinians. And just noting how far we've come in this last year, and for our general legislative leadership to be in a position to say that, and to just, in all of this, I think Pierce said it, Councilmember Freelon said it when he said, the spirit of Martin Luther King and so many countless ancestors who have poured into the civil rights work, not just Black, white, Jewish, all across the faith spectrum, all across the race spectrum. I think it's important to note that we are in a very curious moment, and I look forward to what's next. And I am ready for what's next, and I appreciate everyone putting the work in to move us beyond just justice to liberation, actually, because we're getting to that role. We're rolling down this street, and I'm just honored to be on the council with you all and to continue to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Wow. Okay. You guys crushed it tonight. Those are some fantastic, fantastic words. Thank you so much, colleagues. As Councilmember Freeman said, it's a privilege to be here with you all and be a member of this group tonight. Thank you. All right. I think now we're going to start moving into our business now that we've had our fun. We'll start with our priority items by our city manager. Madam Manager, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the Durham City Council. I do have some priority items for you this evening. Agenda item number 5, non-discrimination ordinance, attachments number 1 through 3 have been updated. Agenda item number 10, purchase contract for 6 40-foot electric buses with Gilling LLC. Attachment number 8 was added. Agenda item number 21, 911 first responder calls for service evaluation update and initial report. Pursuant to council's request, additional information has been provided in attachments 2 through 4, and they are located under the priority items by the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk section of the agenda. Agenda item number 22, Consolidated Annexation 3016 Page Road Townhomes. The title and attachments number 1, 18, and number 20 were updated. Agenda item number 23, Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, Chapter 160D, Amendments. Title and attachment number 3 were updated. Agenda item number 24, Zoning Map Change, The Forest at Duke. Title and attachments number 2 through number 4 were updated. And finally, agenda item number 25, Zoning Map Change, Corners at Brier Creek Townhomes South. That title was updated. Thank you. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Madam Attorney, any priority items tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. Good to see you all. The City Attorney's Office has no priority items this evening.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Madam Clerk, any priority items tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. The City Clerk's Office has no items. I just wanted to say I'm really proud of you, and I think that Durham's in excellent hands, and I look forward to this year.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We appreciate that. Thank you. We need people to be proud of us sometimes, don't we, guys? All right, thank you. All right, we'll now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda can be approved by a single vote of the council. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda by members of the public or members of the council, and if pulled, will be voted on at the end of the meeting, considered and voted on at the end of the meeting. And the consent agenda consists of items previously worked on by the council. Under consent agenda, item 1, Durham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners appointment. Item 3, Human Relations Commission appointments. Item 4, interlocal agreement with Durham County regarding Durham County Crisis Response Center. And item 5, non-discrimination ordinance. We can get some silent applause for that. Great. Item 7, amendment to contract numbers 17116 with Durham County for the provision of the housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, HOPWA, housing assistance and related supportive services. Item 8, amendment to contract number 17351 with the Housing Authority of the City of Durham for the provision of the housing opportunities for person with AIDS, HOPWA, tenant-based rental assistance services. Item 9, interlocal agreement with Durham County to provide funding for minor repair and substantial rehabilitation programs. I had heard earlier from Ms. Stella Adams that she wanted to discuss item 9, but I don't see Ms. Adams, and I don't actually think this was the item that she meant. I think that this was something different, so I think we're okay. Item 10, purchase contract for 6 40-foot electric buses with Gillig LLC. Item 11, amendment number 2 to the Fayetteville Road Lift Station and Force Main Upgrade Professional Engineering Service Contract. Item 12, Eno River Outfall Phase 2 West, award of construction contract to JF Wilkerson Contracting Incorporated. Item 13, Triangle Land Conservancy Day Watershed Project Protection Project, authorization to fund. Item 14, radio software upgrade agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. Item 15, amendment to interlocal agreement with the Durham Housing Authority to procure security cameras and lighting. Item 16, land lease with Crown Castle South LLC, 301 Archdale Drive. Item 17, 9th amendment to assignment agreement for the Durham Athletic Park operating agreement. Item 18, second amendment to the training to work reentry grant for contract with Eckerd Youth Alternatives, Inc., doing business as Eckerd Kids. Item 19, contract with Recovery Innovations for a licensed clinician. Colleagues, you have heard the consent agenda, and now I will accept a motion for its approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Reese, seconded by Councilmember Caballero. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. Colleagues, we're now moving to our general business agenda. We have one item on the general business agenda before we get to our public hearings, and that is the expansion of Bull City United. We heard a presentation on this and had a very good discussion of it at the work session. And so I will either accept a motion or we can just be happy also to just hear people's opinions. We could go either way. Does anyone want to start us off?
I can go.
Councilmember Freelon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a chat, we had a chat earlier today about this. You know, Mayor Schul, colleagues, you'll recall, voiced some concerns at the work session about, you know, the dire budgetary situation that we're in, and came up with a really interesting suggestion. Is now an appropriate time to bring that up, Mayor Schul?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, you know, when we left, and for members of the public who may not have caught the work session, everyone's really enthusiastic about supporting the expansion of Bull City United. A little context, this is a county program that the city is jumping in to support because we want it to grow. We want it to expand and reach more neighborhoods and census tracts. So there's there's united solidarity and agreement about that. What was really at issue was, to what extent do we expand? Do we expand to one additional census tract or two? That's where kind of the friction was. In my conversation with Mayor Schul prior to today's call, he suggested something that was not previously in the ethers or in my mind during our work session, which is, what if we ask the county to go halvesies with us on this, as it is a county program? And it made me think back to a conversation that before I joined council about the Hope Centers, where, you know, education is under the purview of the county, and, you know, there seemed to be a sense in my observing that conversation that we really want the county to step up for their programs and pay their share. And this would be a scenario where, you know, if we did the larger of the two expansions, the city would be coming in at $1 million against about 500,000 from the county. What would it look like to approach them and ask us to go in for 750, for example, to match their 750 and kind of split that last census tract, which I thought was an interesting proposal, a creative solution, which addressed some of Mayor Schul's concern about the belt tightening that is necessary because of the dire COVID situation we're in conjunction with my desire to reach as many people as possible. My concerns are that that could potentially slow the process, and, you know, waiting on the county to decide whether they'd be up for dropping another $250K of their own money. That just, I'm not sure what that process would look like, but when the mayor suggested it, I was certainly intrigued, you know, at the prospect of achieving both goals, of reaching as many of the census tracts as the city deemed, you know, feasible within our current budget reality, but then bringing down some of the overhead by asking the county to meet us halfway. So that was intriguing to me, and it was just before our call. I hadn't thought about that before, and that's something that I'd be open to, and wanted just to hear from my colleagues what you thought about it. You know, if anyone else had spoken to Mayor Schul about that, I just wanted to check folks' temperature on that, because, you know, as of our last work session, that wasn't a suggestion that was on the table. So.
Thank you very much, Councilmember, and great summary. All right, colleagues, other comments or thoughts? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Freelon, for that idea. In theory, I really like it. I think it would be great for the county to jump in and help support the expansion of this program with us. Based on recent experiences with getting the county on board with things, I share your concern about the timeline. I think that it will take a while to negotiate that kind of agreement, and it's already taken us, I think, a pretty long time to get here to this point where we're ready to move significant resources into the program. So that's just that's my one concern, is that I worry about taking even more time to move this forward. One thing that I had been thinking about and talked a little bit about with our city attorney was a phased rollout. So that if we were to vote to expand Bull City United to the 4 census tracts that were laid out by the city and county representatives, but that they felt that it was too much to, spin all of those up at once, which I expect it would be really hard to, hire all of those folks and train them and get them working into all those census tracts at once, that they would phase the rollout. And so it's quite likely that the funding, that we wouldn't need to put all the funding on the table right now, and some of it would come in this fiscal year and some of it would come in the next fiscal year. So that would mitigate against some of the concerns about the funding. I really feel ready to go. Like I want to support this program. I feel like it's an important step forward for our community. We don't often get the opportunity to really support strong, evidence-based alternative community safety programs like this. And I just really want to go big with it. I think that we have a real opportunity to try something new, and I don't want us to waste that. And this is number one priority for me. I understand we have a budget crisis and COVID is, causing some real turmoil in the budget process. But if we're going to do anything new this year, this would be where my vote is to do this thing. If we didn't do anything else, I would vote for this. So I still feel supportive of moving forward with all 4 census tracts, and hope that we could have conversations with the county to expand the program even more. I mean, I'm sure that there are other communities in the city that could benefit from this intervention. These are just the top 4 that they, brought to us for consideration. But I would love to have Bull City United teams, working in every neighborhood all over the city. There's a lot of opportunity for this kind of mediation and conflict resolution. So that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Colleagues, other colleagues? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Councilmember Freelon and Mayor Pro Tem's comments beforehand, and noting, I just wanted to just take a step back and just note that this is a program, and I do agree that it would be nice to be working at all 4 census tracts, because I do not feel comfortable picking just 1 or 2. But I do want to note that the cure violence model is something that I find hard to kind of parse away from all the things that need to happen. And so I feel a lot more uncomfortable spending $1 million on this one model and not wrapping it with other, parts and pieces around, similar to the We Are the Ones or other items that folks in the community have suggested. And so I'm concerned that the cure violence model is going to take over the whole gun violence conversation in a single bullet kind of format, as opposed to just a multi-layered, multi-tiered kind of complex, or kind of focusing on how we got to the problem of needing to cure this violence or gun violence, acknowledging first and forehand that white violence is at play in this. And so I have a lot of parsed views in this conversation that I know most folks on the call aren't in the same vein with. But I do think that it's important to note that this cure violence model still leaves the county as the kind of manager over this program. And that is uncomfortable, acknowledging that this should be something more on the community side and based in the community and in a way that's kind of equitable, so to speak, in that they have access to the transparent, ability to make changes or what's happening or how it's happening. And they're actually making decisions as a part of it. And so I've got a lot of concerns, but like I spoke with the mayor earlier and I explained, I don't think we're having that conversation. And so I'm open to wherever it falls.
Thank you, Council Member. Anyone else? Council Member Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank my colleagues for their weighing in on this. This may come as a surprise to some people watching, but there is not one colleague to a person on this council where at some point during my tenure on this council, I came in thinking I was one place on something, but after listening to them, I was another place. To a person. Issues where I thought I was going to vote one way, I voted on another. So I want to acknowledge how seriously I take debate and how seriously I take the ruminations of my colleagues. They're not just idle chatter to me. I listen very intently because, you need to be humble. Sometimes you're just not right. So with that said, Mayor Schul, you're, and yeah, he spoke with me as well, Council Freedom. Probably when he says he's going to call us, he calls us. I'll call
all you poor guys.
Yeah, he does. So the arguments about the sticker price and the phased in, I'm a fiduciary for the city. That I always take that very seriously. But the issue for me in this is just, for the people that I feel accountable to in the city and the people that I talk to, is just a consistency with I'm talking about me for what I say and what I do. And some of the things I've already entered into public record during this debate. $900,000, is the less I support something, the bigger the price is to me. But if you support it, then the price is palatable. For me, I don't know how I would, moving forward, if whatever we spend on this expansion, which will to date be the first substantive step we'll take to combat gun violence, aside from traditional policing responses, which all of us, just about everybody agrees, we need to start looking at other responses than traditional policing responses. For our first foray into something, I think the Mayor Pro Tem said they want to go big with it. I think it's important that we convey to the people of the city that we get it and we take this issue seriously. It's going to be hard for me to not choose the 4 census tracts and then engage honestly with you as my colleague when we get into the rest of the budget issues. If there are things that we're spending more money than this on, because for me, this is the most important thing we're facing right now, this and COVID. Gun violence and COVID are the two most, they are clear and present dangers. They are an imminent threat to the well-being and life of our citizenry and our residents. And there's no more sacred responsibility of a government than to protect the lives of its people. Everything else is contingent upon it. You can't participate in anything if you're not alive. So for me, whatever we set the bar at for this particular initiative, that for me is going to represent a tension point as I engage with in debate about whatever else we spend money on in next year's budget. I favor asking the county for partnership, but if we vote for 4 census tracts, that doesn't preclude still having those conversations. And because the money, we can adjust money going out the door accordingly. I know when we set money aside for the Hope Centers with the folk that were doing partnering with DPS, you know, we knew that if all of the seats didn't get filled, all the money wasn't going to get spent. So I'm confident that we can send a powerful message to people in the city tonight by choosing the 4 census tracts, tell them that we take it seriously, and still have enough time and wherewithal to soften the financial blow of the money going out the door. I think we can do both. The other thing is, you know, and I don't mean this tongue in cheek, but you know, we're doing the Wellness and Safety Task Force in conjunction with the county, and we offered $1 million. Is the county going to do 500,000 of that? Did we ask the county to split that cost for them to do 500,000, or did we ask them to add $1 million to that? And that's in partnership with the county. Is DPS going to give $1 million or 300,000? So we were more than prepared to kind of, you know, come up off that cool $1 million. It hasn't met yet, and we're still facing gun violence. Somebody may get shot tonight, as the numbers are. This gunfire is going to go off somewhere in this city tonight, whether anybody's hit or not. That task force hasn't met yet, but we've got $1 million identified for it just on us in conjunction with the county. So, I although I may not seem it at times, one of the questions I always ask myself is, can I explain this to people? Does it make sense? And when constituents stop me or call me or email me, you know, when I vote on something, the first question I ask, can I explain it? And do I believe it when I'm saying it, when it's coming out my mouth? And I cannot given all that's going on in the city and where we are, not ask for 4 census tracts, or take the option of 300,000 and then spend anything north of that on other initiatives which are important and which are vital and which trumpet our values, but I just do not think are as important at this moment than saving the lives of our babies and sending a clear signal that we get it and we take it seriously. We've said no to a number of things. Alas, this is something we can say yes to, and I think we should say yes in a big way, to borrow the Mayor Pro Tem's word. So I'll be supporting the 4 census tracts. And if we see some red flags, slow the money going out the door down. We can revisit the issue, but I think the people of the city tonight need to hear that we get it, we take it seriously, and we're going for the highest level of recommendation that the staff has brought us in the menu of options. So that's where I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Council Member. Other colleagues? Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. I was also one of the folks who had some concerns and reservations around doing the full 4 census tracts. I also said that I was more than willing to go with the majority of council. I am intrigued by the idea of, asking the county to step up, but I think the timeline is something I also have some reticence around. I think, there are, full disclosure on my part, none of our council priorities were funded in last year's budget. There were staff priorities that were funded, but not council priorities. And while this is definitely in my top 3 or 4, I am concerned that other council priorities will not get funded if we do pass the full 4 census tracts. And there are things that I know I put forward as a council member that I find just as important that are, in my mind, also deal with community violence, also deal with violence that we see played out in Durham. Even though it's not gun violence, it's still violence in the sense of an immigration system that rips families apart. It creates trauma. And so I know that I am torn as a council member because I really am concerned about the budget restraints we will be facing. We don't have a full picture. I'm also concerned because we are funding things. While I think a huge advocate of this, we had made a decision around a community and safety wellness task force to help us think through solutions. And between this and the We Are the One fund, I do have some reservations on, are we going to have the resources for some of the things that task force is also going to put forward? So I just want to share all of my reservations. I'm undecided. I will continue to listen to my colleagues. I think the conversation is going to continue here for a little bit. And that's where I'm at this evening.
Thank you, Council Member. So colleagues, one thing we could do is make a motion and then keep talking. And I'll accept a motion if that's your pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, I
Mayor.
move that we fund the 4 census tracts.
All right,
Second.
Councilman. Moved by Councilmember Middleton, seconded by Councilmember Freeman, that we fund all 4 of the census tracts. Okay. Other comments? Councilmember Middleton, Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my counselor, my colleague, Councilor Caballero, for her comments. And I think she really puts things in context for us and really provides us an on-ramp for a conversation, we need to have an important conversation. I really appreciate her for it. And I hear her. I mean, and she's right. None of the council priorities got funded last year. And we know that COVID is still with us. And that's a reality. And we've got to prioritize. I want to say that with respect to this issue, for me, to forego any action in anticipation of what the Wellness and Safety Task Force might do, to me, tacks with the same concern as waiting for the county to see what the county might do. While, the same urgency we bring to wanting to do something tonight on waiting for the county, which actually does exist and actually does have meetings, relative to a task force that has not met yet, it haven't even been fully staffed yet. As far as I'm concerned, there is a Wellness and Safety Task Force at work right now in Durham. It's called the Durham City Council. And there are some governance prerogatives that I think we need to be engaged in right now. Waiting on and also, friends, let me just be forthright. The Wellness and Safety Task Force was never conceived to address gun violence or violence in our city. Its original iteration was part of a larger package that was presented to us when we were voting on adding additional police officers in service to a larger ideological movement to defund, to do away with police. And that's what the task force in its original iteration was about. And then conversation about it dropped off. And then a young Zion was shot, and there was renewed conversation about violence in our city, and the task force reemerged again, talking about it. But the task force was never part of the violence that we're dealing with now. It was about state-sanctioned violence. It was about the violence visited upon Black and brown people by police and how we can come up with new solutions. And I just want to keep fidelity with what actually happened historically. Now, if it's morphed, if its mission has evolved, and we're going to add other things to it, that's fine. But I want to be full-throated and honest that was never aimed at addressing what's going on in our streets right now. And both tracks are necessary. Both conversations are necessary. But I think we need to, take some precautions against conflating all of those things as if the Wellness Task Force was about violence. It was not this kind of violence anyway. So, I just don't think that foregoing any action, and Councilor Caballero didn't say this, so I'm not suggesting these are her words, but any implication that, wait and see what they're going to come up with, to me, is just unacceptable. Folk are getting shot right now. People are getting raided, and families are being torn apart right now. I don't think that we should forego work on an immigration defense fund, waiting for us to have a comprehensive immigration policy from the federal government. Let's wait for them to come up with something before we move forward with doing what we need to do at the municipal level. No, we do what we need to do at the municipal level. We're Durham. Now, what we can do, and if other people want to join the party, whether it's the county, the federal government, or the task force, so be it down the road. I think there are some imperatives right now. And respectfully, with all of our, with all of the things that we work on as council members and all of our, individual interests and passions, for me, and I will say this again, that there is no more clear and present danger to any citizen or resident of the city of any stripe, of any color, of any race, than gunfire going off in our city the way it is. It is a clear and present danger. It is imminent. It affects all populations, all demographics of our city. Black, brown, white, straight, gay, rich, poor. Everybody is subject to this scourge that is upon our city. We have, talked about it for a long time, and I'll just lay this gauntlet down. If this price out the gate is too much for this issue, then everything's on the table. It's on. Everything we do from now on, from A to Z, soup to nuts, has to be brought under that same telescope, same microscope. And we can start tonight with, maybe we should claw back some of that million for the wellness task force that isn't even operating right now. And maybe there's our million for that. Or maybe we should cut it in half, make it 500 grand. They have zero operating costs right now. There are no ideas even in the pipeline. But tonight, somebody will probably get shot, or at least gunfire will go off tonight somewhere in the city. So, I associate myself with Council Caballero's comments. We're going to have to make some hard decisions, but it's easy for me tonight to make this decision because gunfire is going off right now, and I think we're going to have to we can do multiple things at one time, but I can't be aghast at the sticker price on this particular initiative for Bull City United, and then just spend $1 million like it's nothing on the Wellness Task Force, or $2 million on participatory budgeting, or whatever, or anything else like it's nothing, and then I'm aghast at this. No. Our kids are getting shot now, and there's nothing more important, I think, that faces our city, respectfully. So that's where I am on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I appreciate my colleague, Councilmember Middleton, covering that for us. And I won't rehash that aspect of it, but I will say that it's important to note that as you pause on $1 million for violence intervention, just note that this is just a piece, just a small part of what needs to happen, because as much as we talk about shared prosperity and as much as we talk about all the other root causes around this violence, we've got a lot more work to do, and it may not come in the form of council recommendations or council pushes forward. And I think it's going to be important to acknowledge that. In the same vein, it's going to be just as important to make sure that the street, the city, and all of the operations are functioning fully this year and next year and going forward. And so, we have to have clean water, the trash has to be picked up. All of those things are going to be a huge factor this budget cycle. But I think that it's I think it's just what Councilmember Middleton said, and that it's just that high a priority for me. I can't speak for anyone else, but it is just that high a priority for me. And I would say that I would want to make sure that the county not only matched what we're doing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with this cure violence model. There are other aspects of this that have to be covered, but we should be holding each other accountable to make sure that there's support for the work that needs to happen in our community. And I'll just leave it at that, but thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Other colleagues? Okay, well, I'll offer my comments at this point. The motion on the floor is that we support all four funding for all four of the census tracts. And let me just say that I'm going to vote against that, and I'll tell you my reasons. I have a lot of experience with Bull City United. I have spent a lot of time with them, and I believe that the cure violence model is a great model, and I support the expansion into 2 census tracts. I think that there are several good reasons for that. One is, and why 2 is better than 4 in this case. One is that this is the differences between essentially $350,000 and $950,000. I don't have those figures exact, but it's pretty close. I'm often in situations, and we're all often in situations where we vote for out of budget expenses. Things come to us and we do that. This is a big one. This is a giant chunk. And I'm uncomfortable with that given our budgetary situation. I'll just say that straight out. The other thing I think is this. If we do, thinking about the timing of this, as Madam Mayor Pro Tem says, it's going to take a while to do this, to set this up, to make this happen. And I feel it would be a very sensible action to fund two, to see how they go, with our staff involved in looking at how they go, not just the county staff, to make sure that there's fidelity to the model and that it works. And that will give us plenty of time to decide at budget time whether or not we want to fund two more. So that's my position. My secondary position, and I thought that Councilmember Freeline did a good job of describing it, and I've described it all to all of you all on the phone, is that we say if we don't want to just go with two, that we go with two, and then we say to the county, okay, we'll fund a third if you all will fund a third as well. So those are both, I think, superior alternatives to this, and that's the way I'll be voting. All right, other colleagues? Let me just say one other thing, and that doesn't mean that I'm and I recognize, as we all do, the scourge of gun violence in Durham. The question is, what is the best and most responsible way to spend our money to fight it? Okay, other comments? If not, we'll go ahead and we'll vote. Any more comments? All right, Madam Clerk, there's a motion on the floor that we fund the 4 census tracts for the Bull City United. Will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Schul,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero, Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it, 6-1. All right, we'll now move to our public hearing items. Those items will begin with item 22, Consolidated Annexation, 3016 Page Road Townhomes. And I see Mr. Cahill is with us tonight.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Schul, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, honorable council members. I'm Alexander Cahill with the Planning Department. And to echo the tone set at the beginning of this evening, I am both humbled and proud to be here under your leadership tonight. I do want to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and that affidavits of these notices are on file in the Planning Department. Requests for an annexation, utility extension agreement, and zoning map change have been received from Stephen Dorn of Lennar Corporation for around 27 acres of land located around 3016 Page Road. This site is presently zoned residential rural and is being proposed to be rezoned to Planned Development Residential 7.200. The applicant is proposing developing up to 193 townhouse residential units on this site. This proposal does expand upon the residential development pattern to the east and southwest of the site being proposed. The zoning map change request has been reviewed by staff, and it is determined to be consistent with Unified Development Ordinance requirements. Summaries of these commitments in excess of the UDO requirements may be found on the development plan in attachment 8B in the agenda packet. Some of these commitments that include the construction of an exclusive northbound left turn lane with adequate storage and the dedication of an additional 25 feet of right-of-way along the Page Road frontage. The location of tree coverage areas, site access points, building and parking envelopes, stream crossings, and project boundary buffers are on the development plan. And then the design commitments that include a variety of exterior building materials and architectural features that include projected bays, vertically proportioned windows, gabled end walls with accent siding. And then at least 40% of the townhomes will offer a maximum 1-car garage stall, and at least 40% of the townhouse units will offer a rear-loaded garage option. At the November 10th, 2020 Planning Commission hearing, The Planning Commission recommend approval of this request by a vote of 13-0. Staff does recommend that the City Council approve the utility extension agreement, voluntary annexation, and consistency statement for this proposed zoning map change. We recommend this approval based on several key findings, which include the contiguous nature of this annexation, the minimal impacts to city services, the revenue positive result of the cost benefit analysis, the construction of an exclusive northbound left turn lane to mitigate the traffic impacts, the text and design commitments found in the development plan, and the abundance of land that's already zoned industrial in Durham. There are indeed 3 motions required for this application. I believe the agenda packet might say 2, but we do need 3 motions. The first is to adopt an ordinance annexing 3016 Page Road Townhomes into the city of Durham and to enter into a utility extension agreement with Lennar Carolinas. The second is to adopt a consistency statement. And the third is to adopt an ordinance taking property out of the residential rural district and establishing the same as planned development residential. Thank you very much. Staff and the applicant team are available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cahill. Did you mention the notifications for these items?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, you have heard the report from staff, and I'm now declare this public hearing open. And I'm going to first ask if there are any questions for staff by members of the council. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just trying to triple check on, he mentioned there were 3 motions, and I noted in the memo there were 2, and I just wanted to make sure I had the most up-to-date one, because I did just refresh, and I didn't want to.
That is correct. My apologies. There'll be some changes coming, you'll hear in the next public hearing item, but for now we need 3 motions. The first is for the utility extension agreement and annexation. The second is for the consistency statement, and the third is for the zoning ordinance. Okay. Thank you for that.
Councilmember Freeman, I think the problem is that they left the consistency statement out of the motions on our.
That's what I figured. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor. That was all.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I appreciate you bringing that up. I hadn't spotted that. Thank you.
And whenever you're ready, I'll make the motion.
Why don't we've got to hear from some people first, and then we'll do that. Yeah. Some people have signed up to speak on it. Okay. First, though, any other questions for staff by members of the council? Okay, we have some people signed up to speak on this item. They are Charlie Yoakley, Neil Ghosh, Jeremy Anderson, and Elizabeth Dorn. Mr. Ghosh, all these people are listed as proponents. Are they members of your team?
Yes, they are.
Are you leading the presentation tonight?
I am.
All right. Let me just ask, is there anyone here present who would like to speak on item 22 who did I not mention? If so, please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing none then, Mr. Ghosh, how is your presentation organized?
It's just me talking for probably about 5 minutes.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll see if there's anyone else that wants to be heard on this item. Go ahead, Mr. Ghosh.
All right, and first of all, thank you, Mr. Cahill, for your presentation. And good evening, Mayor Schul, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and members of the City Council. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group here in Durham at 112 West Main Street. I am representing Lennar, which is the applicant for this project tonight. Charlie Yoakley and Stephen Dorn from Lennar are with me tonight, as well as Jeremy Anderson from Coulter Jewel Town. You already have heard the basics of the project. It is about 193 homes on 27 acres. While the community will consist solely of townhomes, 3 different product lines actually are contemplated. The community will include a 1-car garage option, a 2-car garage option, and a rear alley loaded option. And while it's hard to pinpoint because there's so much movement in material prices and other market factors, I did want to mention that we believe we'll be able to bring this community online within the $265,000 to $300,000 range. The design commitments included with this project help ensure that each home will have some outdoor space, which is becoming increasingly important in the market. We also have committed to having some stone or masonry on the front facade of each home. The development plan includes several road improvements associated with the project. For example, the community will require an exclusive northbound left turn lane along Page Road so that traffic turning into the community can get out of the way of through traffic, especially during peak hours. The project will also dedicate 25 feet of right-of-way along the Page Road frontage, and we also committed to installing a 5-foot bike lane, asphalt bike lane, along the entire Page Road frontage of the property. You may have noticed that the development plan shows multiple points of access. However, many of those will not link up to existing roads at this time. Instead, those stubs will provide connectivity for future development. Until the properties around the site develop, the project will include only 2 points of access, both of which will be along Page Road. The northernmost access will be right in, right out, while the other access point will provide that leftover movement. At our neighborhood meeting, traffic was a chief concern, and while our project includes several improvements, it actually was not large enough to warrant a full-blown traffic impact analysis. The good news, though, is that there is a nearby project, Bethpage, which was large enough and is required to implement several road improvements in the area. In fact, since the neighborhood meeting, the Bethpage developers have installed a stoplight at the intersection of Globe and Page, and those developers of Bethpage also are responsible for, and may already have installed, I'm not actually sure, but they're responsible for traffic signals at Page and Chin Page Road and at Logistics and Page Road intersection, as well as installing turn lanes on Logistics Way. So those road improvements will greatly improve the flow of traffic within this corridor. Finally, I wanted to touch on the suitability of the site for townhomes. Currently, the property has an industrial future land use map designation. While allowing residential development here would create an isolated industrial pocket on the future land use map, the existing industrial designation is somewhat of a whole itself. Residential development exists north, east, and west of the industrial designation. So I would argue that the current industrial designation is not necessarily appropriate here in the first place, and that residential development is more sensible. I think the unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission for this case also suggests that they think the future land use map change is appropriate, as well as the project itself. And hopefully you all will agree. We do have our team available to answer questions. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and we look forward to your vote tonight. I would like to reserve any remaining time to the extent there might be a need to rebut any additional speakers. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this item? All right. Colleagues, I do have a couple of questions. Mr. Cahill, it's interesting that the observation from staff was that there is an abundance of industrial land in Durham. I'll just say this is a surprise to me. For years, we've heard at council that there is a shortage of developable industrial land in Durham. Do you have any thoughts to offer on that, or maybe Ms. Young?
Sure, I can jump in, and then if Ms. Young has anything to add, she's more than welcome. So what we are referencing is a tool that's been adopted and developed. That's the Industrial Land Use Study. That study has identified different areas in Durham throughout the city and county that are have a future land use designation of industrial. That study has different suitability scores from 0 to 14, 14 being the most suitable, 0 being the least suitable. And the study, while it's just a tool that we use as a reference, has identified that there's ample industrial land in each of those high suitability scores. So 11, 12, 13, and 14 all have a lot of acreage that are slated for industrial and could be changed and suited to something more appropriate for the context. I don't know if Ms. Young wants to add anything to that.
Ms. Young?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Mr. Cahill did a really good job of summarizing that. What we found through the industrial land use study update that we just recently completed is that we previously had grossly overestimated the amount of industrial that we would need. And so there is a very, very large amount on the future land use map presently. This site, I think if I remember correctly from the staff report, it rated as an 11, which is high, but not super high. But it is actually a relatively small size at only about 26 acres. So it really will not affect in terms of something we would recommend, for instance, against removing from the industrial land use. We definitely are comfortable with removing this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll just say that this is news to me. I have been to many city council members meetings in the past where there was concern on the part of the planning department and others on removing land from industrial use. So maybe you could make that study or a summary of, the executive summary of it or something available to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then for the applicant, Mr. Ghosh.
Yes.
Mr. Ghosh, you all are adding, I believe, 21 students to Durham Public Schools with this development. Have you all considered a proffer to Durham Public Schools? As you know, the majority of developers that who are adding students are contributing $500 per student to Durham Public Schools. Have you all considered such a donation?
In fact, we have, and I'm glad you asked. We would be pleased to make such a proffer.
And have you considered a donation to the Durham, the City of Durham's Affordable Housing Fund?
We have, and before I answer on that front, let me confer with my client. If it would be appropriate to have other council members weigh in, I'll just confer with them on the side.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Ghosh.
Thank you.
Colleagues, are there any other questions or concerns that you all would like to raise, either with staff or the applicant? All right, then we'll just wait until Mr. Ghosh comes back with after his consultation with his client.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Sorry for that brief pause there. I think my clients are pleased to make a commitment of $40,000 to the City's Affordable Housing Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. I appreciate that. I'll ask the staff what form that they need to hear about those two proffers from Mr. Ghosh. Can I hear about that, Mr. Cahill?
Yes, Mr. Ghosh, we'll need a consent form signed, as you are aware. And just to confirm, $40,000 for the dedicated housing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and the motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh, and thank you to the applicant. Good luck to you. I believe that we also will hear from you later tonight as well. All right, now we will go to item 23, the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, NCGS Chapter 160D Amendments. We'll first hear from staff.
Thank you very much. Michael Stock with the Planning Department. And as before, I will normally keep my video off because of my lack of broadband power on my side of things and to be able to actually talk to you guys. So thank you for putting up with that. Text Amendment TC 20004 proposes revisions to various standards of the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, in order to comply with statutory revisions associated with new state enabling legislation, NCGS Chapter 160D. This includes necessary corrections, clarifications, reorganization, or other minor changes. It also does include some other technical changes for clarity or to remove redundancies. In short, 160D combines city enabling statutes currently found in Chapter 160A and county enabling statutes currently found in Chapter 153A into one set of statutes. Most changes are technical in nature. Some others that are more policy related include requiring constructive notice when an official interpretation is provided by the director, recordation of special use permits, and requiring appeals of Historic Preservation Commission actions to go to Superior Court instead of the Board of Adjustment. The Planning Commission recommended approval on November 10th, 2020. As a reminder, two actions are requested tonight. First, on the consistency statement found in attachment A, and then action on the ordinance itself found in attachment B. I would also like to update you on one process change that isn't reflected in ordinance, and this is a change to consistency statements itself. State statute now allows under 160D for the minutes of a hearing to be met to meet the requirements of consistency and reasonableness statements for zoning and text amendments. And after discussion and advice from the city and county attorney's offices, planning staff will implement this method once this ordinance is effective, most likely starting in February. The city clerk has also been made aware of this procedure change, which will actually also require staff reading statements specifying information provided in agenda items into the minutes. So there will no separate consistency statement documents, therefore, will be required. And I think that might bring a slight smile to council members for one less action they have to worry about when deciding a case. And thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stock. Colleagues, you've now heard the report from staff, and I will declare this public hearing open. And let me just say that I, for one, will miss the consistency statements. And in fact, I might, after meetings, just read myself some consistency statements, Mr. Stock. All right. I don't see anyone signed up to speak on this item, but let me ask, is there anyone here that would like to speak on item 23? Colleagues, are there any questions for Mr. Stock or any comments from Mr. Stock?
Thank you, Mr. Stock.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you.
All right. And I see a thumb up or two, although I know there's a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth for the disappearance of the consistency statements come February. All right. Colleagues, I'm going to now declare this public hearing closed and the matter is before the council, and our first action will need to be to adopt the consistency statement. See what I mean? Can I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Reese, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion passes unanimously. The second motion will be to adopt an ordinance amending the UDO incorporating revisions to Article 1, General, Article 2, Review Authority, Article 3, Applications and Permits, Article 4, Zoning Districts, Article 5, Use Regulations, Article 8, Environmental Protection, Article 12, Infrastructure and Public Improvements, Article 13, Additional Requirements for Subdivisions, Article 15, Enforcement, and Article 17, Definitions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Reese, seconded by Councilmember Freeman. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Member Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Member Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Stock.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, excuse me, we'll now move to our next public hearing item, which is zoning map changes forested Duke.
Thank you. Good evening again, Michael Stock with the Planning Department. Case Z200012 is a request to amend the development plan approved under P88-31 to allow for additional height. The zoning approved for P88-31 will remain effective zoning for the site, thus the request does not create a new zoning map change. The Forested Duke application involves 42.12 acre site located at 2701 Pickett Road. The Durham City Council approved the zoning map change with a development plan for the site on July 25th, 1988. The zoning is PDR District 0.000. Yes, I know, it's kind of weird. The amendment modifies the allowed height based upon PDR district requirements specified in your report, which allows for buildings up to 90 feet, but must identify the buildings on the development plan if any are over 35 feet. The applicant has specified that buildings used for congregate care facilities and associated uses within the Forested Duke Loop, which is a specific driveway, named driveway on the site, to be a maximum of 78 feet as specified on attachment 5 of your agenda item. And staff has determined that this satisfies the UDO requirement. Planning Commission recommended approval on November 10th, 2020. Again, council is requested to take 2 actions, first on the statement of consistency and then on the ordinance for the zoning amendment. Thank you, and the applicant is also available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stock. Colleagues, you've now heard the report from staff, and I'm going to declare this public hearing open. I'm going to first ask if there are any questions for staff by members of the council. Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask staff about Commissioner Miller's objection to this particular project. It didn't seem substantive. It seemed more, I guess, with respect to how the project is described. Commissioner Miller seems to be of the opinion that the rules contained in our UDO require that any building over 35 feet shall be identified in the development plan submitted for approval. And it's my understanding, based on the narrative I just heard, that we're allowing the applicant to say that buildings on this particular road or portion of a road might exceed the 35 feet, which doesn't seem to me to match up with the requirements in the UDO. So I wondered if staff can help me understand that.
Yes, I'll address it, and then Ms. Young can jump in if she feels she needs to be. We did review that requirement and what was proposed by the applicant, and we felt that because they were specifying what the buildings were being used for, location on the site of those buildings, which is inside a very specific identified loop on the site, and that they specified the actual height, the maximum height, that it did satisfy that ordinance requirement. The original application was much broader. It was merely to go up to 90 feet, basically almost anywhere on the site.
Thank you, Mr. Stock. Anything else, Mr. Reese? Thank you, council member. All right, council member Freelon and then council member Freeman.
Yeah, just wanted to build on Councilmember Reese's comment. I read Commissioner Miller's comment as well, and the description that I just heard from staff kind of confirmed something that I felt when reading the comment, which is that we're not approving anything outside of that very specific loop. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that is identified very specifically on the attachment, that cover sheet that's identified as Z200012. It's specified in wording and then also on the map on that plan.
Yeah, I took a look at that, and I guess I was unclear if Commissioner Miller meant, okay, well, we know it's in the loop, but we want to know what part of the loop you're going to go exactly. Like, how specific did he want y'all to go? I mean, I felt comfortable, and it occurred to me perhaps that he may not have even seen as updated a version of this as he had, because it seemed pretty targeted and specific to me. So, for my colleague, Councilmember Reese, I took note of that. And, especially hearing it affirmed by staff that they're talking about a very specific area, I was comfortable personally, given that they're talking about a very specific site in Duke Forest. So thank you, staff folks, for confirming that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Freeman.
And similarly, I was going to say the same thing, but I just wanted to make it clear for like the lay person in this, that at the street level, I guess on the street frontage, will you be able to see, will the building envelope be at the street or will it be closer to the center? Because I'm not sure which loop. I know there's a few, but I can see the way that the buildings are laid out.
The loop is a specific driveway loop that's already been built out in the Forest at Duke, and I believe the applicants are going to have a brief presentation that will help show it even more clearly than what's on the development plan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you, Mr. Stock. Colleagues, any questions for Mr. Stock anymore before we go to hear from the people who are here today to speak on this item? All right, then we'll now hear from members of the public. We have 3 people who are signed up to speak as proponents: Katie Hamilton, Drew Langsam, and Anita Holt. Who will be leading that presentation for the proponents?
Anita.
Good. Ms. Holt, thank you. Welcome. Are you speaking, or are the others speaking as well?
I am speaking, and I believe that Katie may speak as well, only because she will walk you through the design if you so desire.
Okay, thank you.
But we will do this quickly in the interest of time.
Ms. Holt, hang on just one second. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this item? If so, could you raise your virtual hand? Or put your name in the chat? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Holt.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sure that many of you know the Forest at Duke. We've certainly been in the neighborhood for quite some time. But for those who don't, we are a continuing care retirement community and represent a community of people over the age of 65 who've chosen to live in an active, thriving community with the certainty of the care and services that they need currently and as they age. One of the things that we've been most proud of over the years is that we have been able to provide outstanding service to a variety of older adults, individualized care, and responsive to the individual needs of people as they age. We are also recognized as an innovator with our health center renovation in 2005, which matched architecture with a service concept that was much more residential, even in our most clinical areas. We have been an organization that has been uniquely positioned to meet the ongoing and emerging needs of older adults. But in that 28 years, we've also been active and engaged as members of the Durham community and an involved neighbor who has indeed invested. In particular, and I think that it's important for you to know that we have developed a social accountability presence that includes not only in-kind services, but direct grants, resident and staff volunteers, and board leadership to other not-for-profits, agencies, and those that are serving people who are most at risk or in need in Durham. As such, the annual value of that for our organization has been that we have provided a value of up to $1.5 million per year to the city of Durham, and have done so for pretty much most of the past, for all of the years of our existence in some form or another. In the past 5 years has been over the 1.5 million mark. Next slide, please. I think one of the things that you should know is we are enclosed and landlocked on our property. We currently have 249 independent living apartments, cottages, and single-family homes. We have 92 licensed beds that provide health center services for skilled nursing and assisted living and assisted care. We serve a total of 401 residents. What we are doing is building a new 90-bed health center and a community when we will demolish our existing. If you are in healthcare, doing an occupied renovation is an interesting challenge. So we will build new and within the footprint of our campus, add a community center expansion, and then add additional independent living apartments. As again, it's important, and I know that Katie and Drew will walk you through it, but it is within the footprint of our existing campus. Our campus slopes down so that as we indeed build, we have a certain recognition of maintaining the residential feel and not being an obstructive force in our neighborhood. Drew and or Katie, I don't know which of you would like to speak next.
Thanks, Anita. This is Katie Hamilton with Stewart. I can speak next. You could actually just move on to slide 7 of the 8. That would be great, just to keep us all clear. As has been mentioned by staff, we will be allowing the building height to expand to 78 feet in height, only internal to the existing Forest at Duke Drive. Hopefully this graphic gives a little bit more clarity on what that area entails. The rest of the Forest at Duke outside of the drive will be limited to that 35 feet in height that is allowed under current PDR restrictions. We will be maintaining the 50-foot buffers that are within the 1988 PDR zoning and the entry locations that are shown there. As Anita mentioned, this site does have topography that is particular to it in that within that drive, there is 24 feet of grade change from the portion of the drive closest to Pickett Road to the portion of the drive that is closest to 15501. So that's about 2 stories of the building that would be sunken in. Another note is that the building that is currently within this drive that is not the cottages that are shown, is actually in excess of the 35 feet allowed under current ordinances. Obviously, things have changed since the 1988 zoning was approved, but this would allow us to bring these buildings into compliance while also expanding the offerings that Anita previously mentioned. Other than that, we're here for any questions that you might have, and we appreciate y'all taking the time to hear our proposal today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hamilton. Let me just ask if you could take down thank you. Colleagues, let me just ask again, is there anyone else here tonight who would like to be heard on this item? This is a public hearing item. All right, hearing none, I'm going to ask if there are any more questions for staff or the applicant. All right, hearing none, then I'm going to declare this public hearing closed, and the matter is back before the council. There will be 2 motions necessary to adopt this item. The first would be to adopt a consistency statement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Reese, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it and the motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to motion 2 to adopt an ordinance amending the UDO by amending the development plan for the planned density residential 0.000 zoning district approved per case 988-P99-988-31.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Reese, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The motion passes unanimously. Ms. Holt, Ms. Hamilton, thank you all for being with us tonight, and good luck on your project. And we hope it is a big success. All right, we'll now move to item 25. This is the last item on our agenda, zoning map change corners at Brier Creek Townhomes South. And we'll first hear our report from staff.
Good evening, Mayor Schul, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and honorable council members. I'm Danny Coulter of the Planning Department. Requests for utility extension agreement and zoning map change have been received from Stephen Dorn of Lennar Corporation LLC and Jesse Hardesty of McAdams Company for an 18.94 acre portion of a 60.54 acre tract area located at 4228 Corners Parkway. The site is presently zoned commercial general with the development plan, CGD, as part of a legacy development plan, Z12-00019, which currently allows for a total gross floor area of 390,000 square feet within the 60.54 acre tract. The applicant seeks to replace the portion of the 18.91 acre site area with a new development plan, which would allow for 130 townhomes and would be zoned with the same CGD's designation. A utility extension agreement, or UEA, as a revision to the previous UEA, is also included with this case and is being presented before City Council for approval. This revised UEA was required based on the change in use for the proposed development. The area is designated commercial on the future land use plan map or FLUME, which is consistent with a rezoning request. Staff determines that this request is consistent with all comprehensive plan and applicable policies and ordinances. Key text commitments on the development plan include a maximum of 130 townhouse units, constructing the site driveway as a full movement driveway, constructing an exclusive eastbound left turn lane on Corners Parkway at the site driveway, and restriping the northbound approach of the existing Harris Teeter driveway as an exclusive left turn lane and shared through right turn lane. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 9-1 at their October 13th, 2020 meeting. There are 3 motions required for this application. The first is to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Lennar Carolinas LLC. The second is to adopt a consistency statement, and the third is to adopt the zoning ordinance. Thank you very much, and staff and the applicants would be available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Colcha. Colleagues, we've now heard the report from staff. I'm going to declare this public hearing open. And first, I'm going to ask if there are any questions for staff by members of the council. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if anyone was going to speak to the open space area that is the recreational area around there, just noting that that one vote of no, I think, was around that issue. I just wanted to make sure that someone was going to clarify that is not contiguous to this property or something or another. Like,
Councilmember Freeman, we do have some people who are going to present on this item, and maybe after we hear that presentation, you can ask your question again if they don't answer it. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Good, thank you. Councilmember Freeland.
Yeah, just very briefly, I wanted to acknowledge that it's 9:08 and that we usually give our closed captioners a break after 2 hours. Now, we're very close to the end, so I think that they might prefer that we just plow through, but I did want to just stop and acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. I had forgotten that. I think we're going to plow through. I don't think we have a long time, but I really appreciate please keep reminding me of that. Thank you. That was very helpful, and I hope our closed captioners will agree that we should just plow through. But I think we will try to, because I don't think this item will take a long time. Thank you, though. All right, colleagues, we have the people who've signed up to speak on this item are Jesse Hardesty, Nicholas Williamson, and Ryan Akers, all who are proponents. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this item? I see Neil Ghosh as well. Mr. Ghosh, are you speaking on this item also, aren't you?
Yes, in fact, I think I will be the primary speaker.
Okay. Mr. Ghosh, how long do you think you'll need?
5 minutes should probably be fine.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Go ahead.
And good evening again, Mayor
Mr. Ghosh, you heard Councilmember Freeman's question.
I did indeed.
Maybe you could address that as part of your presentation.
Sure. And good evening, everyone, again. I still am Neil Ghosh, attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, and I still am representing Lennar, who happens to be the applicant for this project. Stephen and Charlie still are with us from Lennar, but this time the fine folks at McAdams are assisting us. I believe we have Ryan Akers, Jesse Hardesty, and Nick Williams on the line. Mr. Coltra, thank you for your presentation. And I know we're late in the evening here and also last on the agenda, so I'll try to be brief. But one thing I wanted to make sure to explain is that the current zoning on the property technically already allows for townhome development, but it does not speak to it directly. The current zoning envisioned a non-residential development here, but it does not prohibit residential development. We are seeking rezoning primarily to place more sensible parameters around new residential development and otherwise to limit development on this specific site to residential. To address Councilwoman Freeman's question, and I don't want to mischaracterize Planning Commissioner Williams' comment, but I think she had the understanding that we were rezoning a portion of the property that otherwise was slated for open space. That is not the case. The current zoning on the property would allow for development, residential or non-residential, on this specific piece of property. Throughout the entire development plan, there are other open space areas that are designated, and those areas will remain the same. We are not changing anything about the previously dedicated or sought after open space elements of the overall development plan. So this rezoning addresses only a portion of the overall development plan, and it is a portion which already was slated for development and not open space. Now, another thing I want to point out is, because we're switching from non-residential to residential for this piece of property, the good news is that the traffic improvements associated with the previous version of this development plan, so for the non-residential development, they largely have been implemented. So the off-site traffic infrastructure for this residential community already is in place. And if you've read the Planning Commission comments, you probably already are aware of the many locational benefits of this site, including its proximity to an existing transit stop. We did get an overwhelming recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, which we're very proud of. And, I think I'll cut it off there. We have our team available to answer any questions you may have, and look forward to your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ghosh. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this item tonight? If so, can you raise your virtual hand? This is a public hearing. All right. Mr. Ghosh, I'll ask the questions that I asked earlier about the previous development. In this development, it looks to me like there will be 14 students added to Durham Public Schools. Have you all considered a proffer to the Durham Public Schools?
So I am glad you asked that, and I wanted to clarify. On this project, the developable area where we will be adding residential units actually is in Wake County and not in Durham County. It is in Durham, the city of Durham's territorial jurisdiction. So obviously the city does have zoning authority over that section of the property. The 14 additional students which are contemplated to be generated by this project, none of them will go to Durham Public Schools. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And, I guess I would kind of throw the question back to you. We had thought about it. I don't really know what to do about that.
Mr. Ghosh, that's a very reasonable point. Have you considered a donation to the City of Durham's Affordable Housing Fund?
Indeed, we have. And on this project, and just so you know, this project is in both the Searles Basin and the Del Webb Basin, which means it's getting a double whammy on that sewer or basin fee, about $11,000, I believe, right now per lot. But we are looking to make a contribution to Durham's Affordable Housing Fund in the amount of $20,000.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Colleagues, any other questions? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to follow up, Mr. Ghosh, can you speak specifically to how the development will allow for walkability and kind of, I guess, building on that open space that is a little bit further over? Will there be connections or pathways that make sure that youth and children, more than just the automobiles, but the connectivity in this property will be useful to youth in this area, considering that there is such a large open space that will be like, I think, three or four lots over. And
so there is no planned connectivity to that. I believe you're looking at a portion of the overall acreage, which was part of the original development plan, which may earlier have been slated for open space. And my understanding is that open space is not a programmed open space. It's more like an undevelopable area of the property, which counts towards open space. And we are not intending on having any specific connection to that area. But the first part of your question was aimed at the walkability of this site. And this site, I mean, I think everyone is familiar with the site. It's in Brier Creek. It's essentially behind where the Harris Teeter was built. And so this site has direct walkability to that section of Brier Creek, including to an existing transit stop. And so we do think this site has will have a great walk score once it is built. Although I'm not prepared to put a number on that. But you know, all of this stuff is within less than a quarter mile of grocery, retail, other shopping, and other services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ghosh. Thank you, Council Member. Any other questions for Mr. Ghosh? All right. If not, then I'm going to declare this public hearing closed, and the matter is now back before the council. We would need, the first motion will be to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Lennar Carolinas LLC.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make a comment prior to the motion. I just wanted to note that I think that this speaks, or this specific property and the zoning map change around it speaks to the conversations we've been having in the past about neighborhood level planning. And so just acknowledging that it's not an existing community yet in place that could be planned around, but I think that this is one of the cases where it would be helpful to have planning staff kind of focus a little bit more in the drum up to this change on how they see this moving forward. So I know that the future land use designation has the open space, it's not program planned, but the context and how this comes forward could give someone the kind of apprehension in that, acknowledging that as we continue to develop without thinking about our youth and what areas and spaces they're gonna have, other than as adults, you know, traveling to and from work, and the commercial spaces are specific to kind of adult uses. I just want to make sure that we're planning to make sure that we have things and plans in mind. It's almost like as if we had if there was a youth planning core who could say to us specifically what it would look like to support something like this, so that youth were included in the process, something like that. But I just felt like I needed to just note that, and that this is a good opportunity to look at and just see how we could plan better. Thank you. And I'd like to move your motion.
Right. Thank you, Council Member.
Second.
And Council Member Freeman has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. We would next need a motion to adopt a consistency statement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Freelon, seconded by Councilmember Freeman. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Member Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And the final motion will be to adopt an ordinance amending the UDO by taking property out of the commercial general district with a development plan, establishing the same as the commercial general district with a development plan.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh, and thank you to the development team, and we wish you good luck. All right, colleagues, I believe that we have done it. Another excellent meeting of the Durham City Council. The time is 9:21, and I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned, and I will see you all at the work session on Thursday.
One more sleep, friends. One more sleep, and our long national nightmare's over.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
everyone.
Take care.
Keeping us all in prayer.